Hello everyone, welcome back to Powerful Nothing, a Magic the Gathering podcast, where we talk cube and other magical goodness. I'm your host Dan, better known on the internet as Too Sweet MTG, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host James. How's it going, dude?
Yeah, going pretty good.
Nice. I'm glad to say that we're back to a regularly scheduled episode. There's no set review for us to do this week. I'm kind of excited to talk about cool things in Magic that we've been up to, rather than having new cards thrown at us at quite an aggressive rate.
Yeah, we're in a small window between sets. Not that we aren't in the middle of spoiler season / leak season, but be that as it may, we'll deal with Modern Horizons when full spoiler is out. Right now, we have other magical business to discuss.
Yep, exactly. So today, for our main topic, we're going to be talking about a little project that I've been working on over the last couple of months. I've got multiple ways of describing it. Like, by the end of the episode, we'll have worked out what the best one is, because that will be what the title is. But it's kind of a mystery booster at home, or like unlimited chaos draft. Basically, I've built a 2,000 plus card set that is actually balanced and plays well. And today we're going to be going over that process and talking about it a bit more in a bit more detail. But as always, there will be time codes down below if you want to jump around. But first up, it's the news. So it's been a while since we've had a proper catch-up. James, do you want to give us a quick update on how the most recent Pro Tour went?
Yeah, for sure. So the most recent Pro Tour was standard and booster draft. Pretty healthy top 8. First of all, massive congratulations to Yoshihiko Ikawa for taking it down with the main ramp. Phenomenal performance. I think he dropped one match across both days, which was in limited. He went undefeated in Swiss and top 8 with the main ramp. But a really varied top 8. We've got Yuta Takahashi in second place with Azorius Control. Got Boros Convoke in there, Esper Legends, 4-color Legends, which is a really sweet deck, actually, which I want to talk about. And Teamer Analyst as well by Sean Goddard. So yeah, I think first thing to say, really nice to see an actual healthy-looking standard format. I think it has been like decent for a while, but this is kind of the first time it's sort of been on a big stage, I guess, in a while. But it seems like pretty balanced, like a really big variety of archetypes. You've got aggro, you've got combo, you've got control, you've got ramp, all in this top 8. And it kind of seemed like, looking at the field going in, there was a lot of Esper mid-range registered. It was certainly the most played deck by a decent amount. And it did fine, put 2 players into the top 8, but certainly not a dominant performance. It kind of seemed like the people who did well were just the people who had a lot of reps with their deck and played really tight and knew how to pilot that deck really well. Most of the decks, I'd say, were like had new cards from a new set, but weren't necessarily new archetypes. Purely the 4-color Legends, I think, maybe had sort of the most transformational cards from the new set. It's a really cool looking combo deck. I actually played Constructed on Arena for the first time in a very long time. This is how curious I was about this deck. Tough one to pick up with not much knowledge, I'll say that. But there's some really cool line. Basically, what you're trying to get, the end game you're trying to get to is you have Relic of Legends, which essentially lets all of your legends tap for mana. But even when they're summoning sick, because you like tap them as a cost to the relic.
Oh, that's cool.
And then you've got Rona, which untaps whenever you play a legendary spell. So that's netting you a lot of mana. You can tap that many times for mana over a turn. And then you get to a stage where you're using Slogurk to recur the...
Sorry, what?
Sorry, yes.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a staple. Allow me to elaborate. Slogurk, the Overslime, is...
Yeah, is that a Simic card from...
Yeah. One
nice.
green-blue for a legendary creature Ooze. It's a 3/3 trample. Whenever a land card is put into your graveyard from anywhere, put a counter on it. Remove 3 counters from it to return it to your hand. And whenever Slogurk leaves the battlefield, return up to 3 target land cards in your graveyard to your hand. But the way you abuse this, really, is that the because all your creatures are legendary, the channel lands from Kamigawa are very, very cheap in this deck. They're almost always just one to channel, and then you can keep recurring them with Slogurk, like especially Takanuma, the one that raised as a creature. Yeah, there's some really interesting lines in the deck. It's a really fun one. But yeah, really cool to see a nice healthy balanced standard format, and I enjoyed watching draft as well. The draft format seems pretty good. I wasn't watching much of it live, but I sort of caught up on some videos. The draft coverage is all I always find a little bit. It can be a little clunky. It's not a format built for coverage. I would say
it's tricky. Like unless you have like 8 cameras or that kind of that kind of stuff. Yeah, a little bit tricky. But kind of just going back to standards. Kind of like this is the first time I've seen this in a note before. This is literally what James wrote on our show doc. Standard actually seems cool. Those are words I have not seen or heard whispered for quite a while. So yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah. There's some stuff going on. I kind of suspect. I think it has been decent for a while. Actually, I just haven't been paying attention. But I might actually play a bit more of this format.
I mean, I guess we're about a year after they extended the the rotation by an extra year. So just having more cards to play with means you can do cooler and more fun things. So yeah, that's awesome. Nice. There was something else you want to touch on, James. So it wasn't all positive. There's a few things kind of like with the qualification system for the Pro Tours that it looks like it's caused some issues with some pro players. Like, do you want to give us a bit more information on that one?
Yeah. So basically, when they brought PTs back, there was a big sort of redesign of the whole qualification system as who qualifies for what. And I think one of the upshots of that is that it's very, very hard for players to consistently keep getting Pro Tour invites, even if they have some great results not that long ago. I believe the best example of this is probably Nathan Stoyer, who I think now fallen off the Pro Tour, which is kind of insane. Like, he won a Pro Tour basically a year ago. March for Machines won, he came first. Top 8'd the one before that. And then a few months before that, won Worlds, was literally world champion. And then he had his last few results, I think he had like 2 of them were positive records, which is not an easy feat in a Pro Tour, and then had a bad result at this PT and is now off the train. Basically, the system only looks at your last 3 results. And it just feels to me like if you have been so far above that bar that you need to be at to qualify for like a really sustained period, there should be a mechanism to give you a bit of grace, you know? I think if you literally win a Pro Tour or win Worlds, you should have a decent number of qualifications in the bank, as it were. Because I think you want to see those like recurring storylines, right? You want to see the best players playing as often as you can. And especially now they're basically not inducting new people to the Hall of Fame. So if you're someone like Nathan Stoyer, who's he's not a new Magic player, of course, but he's, you know, has had most of his success in fairly recent times. So after they just cut off the Hall of Fame, there's kind of not really an avenue for someone like that, even if they're incredibly successful, to sort of lock up a decent period of sustained invites. If you're always like a couple of bad results away from being off the Pro Tour, it feels kind of rough.
Because correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't the Hall of Fame used to come with like not unlimited entries to Pro Tour, but it came with like a bonus? What was that?
So it did used to be unlimited Pro Tour invites. You'd get an invite for everyone on the Hall of Fame. Now Hall of Fame members get basically out 1 free one a year. And then I'm sure someone will correct me if this is wrong. I think they get invites to all the RCs. Right,
okay, that makes sense. And kind of it's part of the issue with this is that kind of when they revamped the system, kind of like by previously I mean like 5 years ago, there was like GPs as well. There were other big tournaments that you could, yes, you're aiming for the Pro Tour, but there's other big there's other more variety of big tournaments you could play in and kind of get your points that way to qualify for you. It's part of the issue that kind of we don't like GPs haven't come back. Like yes, we have Magicons, but they don't. There's like for a year of those, and the prize is normally just cash. It's not really like it's not really for. I'm not gonna say like grinders, but kind of like people invested who are trying to play competitively. That's not really the system for them. The big tournament's kind of like there hasn't been a comparable replacement to GPs as of yet. Is that a big issue, do you think?
Yeah, for sure. I think like there's I mean, listen, in some parts of the world there are some like big-ish cash prize tournaments, right? But they're not everywhere, and they don't necessarily feed into the competitive system and help you qualify for other things. And on top of that, yeah, in a lot of parts of the world, there aren't those opportunities available, really. And yeah, even when there are, they're not GPs. They don't, a GP top 8 used to qualify you for a Pro Tour. You don't have that sort of common event. Now, we have a system of RCQs when you get to a regional championship. And then if you do well there, you can get to the Pro Tour. But it is more steps to get there, and you don't have those regular events that are kind of worth going to anyway, Like, people weren't just going to GPs to qualify for a Pro Tour, they were going to GPs because the prizes were great. GPs were always a really good trip. Everyone enjoyed GPs. And now it's kind of the grind of like, especially if you're starting from no qualifications, it's like the grind of going to a bunch of RCQs at your local game stores in your area, which is, not knocking on that at all, but it's not for everyone. Whereas a trip to a GP, and we used to go to plenty of GPs in like France and Italy and places, and it was always a good time. And it was like, oh, and on top of that, we can potentially qualify for a cool thing.
Exactly. I think a lot of players miss GPs. Like, yes, we have Magic Cons, but GPs were free to just go through the door.
Yeah, I think that was a
wonderful.
Big thing.
I missed that. Yeah. No, that's fair. Yeah. It's. I mean, I think most players would agree that the system right now isn't perfect. Magic Cons have just been wildly successful, so we could just see more of them, and then they could morph back into GPs, that kind of stuff. But time will tell, basically. I think we'll kind of have to wait and see what happens with that. I'm assuming the next Pro Tour is actually at MagicCon Amsterdam, which me and James will be there for a little bit of. So that should be fun. Might get to watch a bit.
Yeah, that'll be a good one. We'll hopefully see some listeners there.
Yes, if you can work out what we look like, come say hello. Nice. But yeah, I think let's move on to our next bit of news now. This one is definitely more recent. We, and by yesterday at time of recording, had a ban and restricted update. From just a card pool point of view, this could be the biggest one in quite a while. But in terms of actually cards that affect things, it's actually quite small. So we'll run through it quickly, and then we'll kind of chat about them each individually. So in Legacy, Vintage, and Pauper, all cards that bring a sticker or attraction into the game are banned. So that was from, was it Unfinity? What was the last unset?
Unfinity, yeah.
Unfinity, yeah. You had the sticker mechanic, which required you putting stickers on cards, on cards, and attractions, which was a whole sub-deck. They're gone from Legacy, Vintage, and Pauper. And for what it's worth, any other format that uses the Vintage ban list, so like Canadian Highlander, they're also banned there. In just Pauper, all that glitters is banned. That's the card that gives your creature +1/+1 for each artifact and enchantment I think you control. We will come back to all that glitters in Pauper, but I think the main one we want to touch on is the stickers and attractions, because kind of like we're talking with other players and also my wife, who is a big Legacy player. I think part of the main reason for this banning, and kind of like this is kind of a ban not as much based on raw power level of the cards. It's more just the accessibility of it, because basically some of these sticker cards weren't able to be coded as they would be in paper on Magic Online. There's a big difference. Kind of like the main culprit is sticker goblin, like underscore / goblin. It's basically it's 2 and a red for a 2/2 creature goblin guest. Actually, yes, this is definitely an uncard. When this creature enters the battlefield, you may put a sticker on it. Add red for each unique vowel on that sticker. That is how it worked in paper. You also had a sticker deck. Online, same mana value, 2 and a red for a 2/2. When this creature enters the battlefield from anywhere other than a graveyard or exile, if it's on the battlefield and you control 9 or fewer creatures named Sticker Goblin, roll a 20-sided die. If you roll 1 to 6, you add 4 mana. If you roll 7 to 14, add 5 mana. If you roll 15 to 20, add 6 mana. That is a completely different card. And the deck online was you cast this goblin on as soon as you can, and then you land the 6 mana Muxus and just dump a load of goblins into play, and then you win. It's kind of half a goblin deck, half a combo deck. Now, that is very different to how the deck functions in paper, because you actually have to use stickers. You actually have to kind of use the cards as intended. And I'm kind of not surprised that I would not be surprised if part of this ban was just Daybreak's going like, we're never going to code this card. This is miserable.
Yeah, I mean, and all these problems seem so foreseeable at the point where they decided to put these cards into Legacy and Vintage, whereas obviously all the other unsets hadn't been legal in those formats. Yeah, on Magic Online, the card plays fine. It's actually in the current Modo Vintage Cube. I think it's a really nice addition to Cube. I was actually considering printing off a paper version of a paper copy of the online version to put into my paper cube, because I kind of want to play with it in Cube, but I'm certainly not like having stickers and stuff. But yeah, it's kind of wild that they chose to put these cards into actual like competitive one-on-one Magic formats, and it seems like a pretty good thing that they're gone. So there's also some discussion about just the practicalities of having these sticker cards in tournaments. Like, so you actually, my understanding is if you're playing in a tournament and you put a sticker card in your deck, you have to like register a deck of stickers.
Yeah, I think it's same with attractions. Like, don't you need like a deck of 10 or something like that?
Yeah. And then there's also this thing of like Phyrexian Metamorph is quite a widely played card in Legacy. And if you were registering Phyrexian Metamorph, you kind of also needed to register a deck of stickers in case you needed to copy a name sticker goblin, you know?
Right.
Like, it sounds niche, but, you know, it's a competitive event. People want all the edges, so you do kind of have to do that. Yeah, and personally, what my opinion, I think the justification for putting them into these formats was, well, we want them to be legal in Commander. They need to have a route to have cards be legal in Commander and not be legal in Legacy and Vintage and Pauper. Like, this is kind of the most silly instance of this we've seen, but I think could say a lot of the same things about Initiative and Monarchy cards. Like, not that I think all those cards are necessarily bad for those formats, but these are cards that are not designed with one-on-one Magic in mind. Like, multiplayer Magic is a fundamentally very different game. Like, I understand that it's not like they're designing all the other cards with Legacy and Vintage in mind, but they are designing it with like 2-player competitive Magic in mind. Cards for me that aren't designed for that probably.
These cards are from Infinity. Like, Infinity was one-on-one. It wasn't a.
Sure, yeah.
It's not a multicolored. Yeah.
Infinity was one-on-one, but not designed to be competitive, right?
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like these are all but silver cards. These are Legacy legal silver cards. Is kind of the way a lot of people think about them, and it is just like, it's just the fact that kind of these cards are so. It's not like the Warhammer cards where it took like a year because of licensing issues to bring them on. Like, these cards, like the sticker cards especially, are just so wildly different. Even like okay, the end result is you make some red mana, but the whole method to get there is completely different. And I know there are other cards that have been banned because of this. Like the whole, like all of these sticker cards and all the attraction cards have been banned kind of because of effectively this goblin, really. But just this one, like that problem of just it being such a wildly different card really sums up, I think, the issue with this.
Yeah, and it's kind of the latest thing in a kind of recurring theme, I think, about them not thinking about these formats, which are now played. You know, the vast majority of games of Legacy that are played online. I assume that to be true. I don't have figures, but I'm pretty confident in saying that that's true. Same with Vintage. And those formats need to be the same. it would be really disastrous for Eternal formats if we get to the point where you can't play quote unquote proper legacy or proper vintage online, which, between, we don't have licenses for these cards online, or we've put cards into these formats that are impossible to reasonably code online. It's I think it's quite a worrying trend for Eternal formats, which I understand aren't Wizards' priority, but maybe they just need to figure out a way to, if the cards aren't going to be reasonable and usable in that format, then they don't go into that format.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's not so much a thing of just saying it's not like Arena where they can just say we're not printing these cards into this game system because these cards are legal in this game system in paper, and people and as yet people want to replicate that online. So it's a decision earlier in the release, basically before these cards are released. They need to say these cards are not legal, and you need to like this card. Like these cards can still be they are still Commander legal. They're just not Vintage, Legacy, and Pauper legal. Like it could have been that from the start, and I think most people would have been fine with that.
No issue with them in Commander, because Commander's, if you want to play a stickers deck in Commander, that sounds great. And also in Commander, I don't feel the need to try and get an edge by being like, I've got some clones in my deck, so I'm going to print off a deck of stickers too,
No, that's fair. And like personally, I think these cards, like from a casual point of view, I have no issue with these cards at all. Like I have no issue with stickers, but just from a purely competitive point of view, like when judges have to check for sleeves and stuff, how does stickers work? Like really, come on. like because also surely you can move them around as well, and that just seems like a massive fact. So ignore that. One last thing I do kind of want to touch on, so just specifically with the stickers and the attractions. Actually, I haven't really touched on attractions, but I don't think that really matters, if I'm honest with you.
I mean, I think really the big impactful one from this list was that the name Sticker Goblin. I'm saying name Sticker Goblin because I can't pronounce 7 underscores.
It's just Goblin. One thing that I think could be quite interesting is the Modern Horizons 3 comes out in a month. Do you think they just print the online version into Modern? Because Muxus isn't legal in Modern, it's legal in Legacy. Do you think they just, we banned it. Here is the card that we just banned, but it's the online version. Just roll the dice, do the thing.
That's kind of a fun. It's not a bad solution, honestly.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong. The online version of the card's good for competitive play. It works well.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of as it is. So from what I've heard and from what I've seen, it's a very strong card, or the deck is very strong. It's like top 5 decks, but it's not like warping the format. It's not like it's a menace. It has to be gotten rid of. It is purely a gameplay matching paper online issue, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's got to feel really bad if you bought into that deck and then it's banned for this reason. Like, it wasn't banned because the deck was too good. It was banned because we realized we shouldn't have put these cards into this form.
That's savage. It wasn't banned because you got to spend 6 months farming farming cards and gems and gold and whatever, and chests and stuff online. No, it was a good. It was broken. It was banned because it was a good card that they couldn't work out a way to make work on both. Yeah, that's not great. Let's quickly touch on Pauper, because All That Glitters was banned. That's 1 white for a enchantment aura. Enchanted creature gets +1 for each artifact and or enchantment you control. I think the gist I heard with this one was that it was just a bit too snowbally. It was just kind of you play this in a deck. Like so many things make artifacts. It counts itself. It counts multiples of these. It just kind of just takes over and wins games and is just a bit too good. It's kind of wild that enchantment aura is too good, but I'm Boggles exists. I'm assuming there's many good creatures you can stick this onto in Pauper.
I think it's actually mostly affinity.
Oh God!
Yeah, I don't think we're worrying about the hexproof. I think we're just chucking this on an ornithopter and going ham.
It's always bloody affinity. Things that get every ban in Pauper is.
Yeah. Although, I mean, I will preface this by saying I don't know very much about Pauper, but yeah, I as I understand it, it's mostly putting this on a gingerbread or an ornithopter, and it's rather large.
Or Frogmite. Yeah, sorry, I'm looking at the deck. Frogmite or a Mirror Enforcer. Oh yeah, because hold on, none of the artifact lands are banned in Pauper. That seems like a mistake. Okay,
No, Pauper's
Right.
a very weird format. Like, this is a format where Dark Ritual is legal, so they just have to ban every Storm card. Rather, it's like, you could just ban Dark Ritual, but you know.
No, fair. Well, no, I'm actually thinking of playing some Pauper in the next month or so. A game store near us has started putting it on Mondays, and apparently Burning Inquiry and Faithless Looting are legal in this format. So I'm game. Oh, I know, and Dread Return and Dredge cards. That's the more important part. I should have started with those actually. Yes, but
yeah. Do you have is like Grave Troll Pauper legal?
No, Grave Troll is definitely a rare.
That's a rare, yeah.
So
the Stinkweed Imps are common, right?
Stinkweed Imps are common. Yeah. Thug is for some reason an uncommon, but it's Dread Return and Lothlith Giant are both common. So they're both legal.
Yeah, Dread Return and Lothlith Giant sounds good.
Exactly. Yeah, so maybe in the next couple of months, expect some Pauper content if that's your jam. We'll try and give it to you. Right. Awesome. So with the news out the way, let's jump into our main topic. So today we're going to be talking about the mystery booster at home cube. It's kind of it's a mystery. It's unlimited chaos drafts. It's mystery booster. It's a 2,000 card cube. One of those. There's a cool name in there, and we might get it by the end of the episode. But so today we're going to be talking about the process that I went through putting it together, and kind of basically so anyone out there who wants to follow it and build their own can do it themselves. Resources will be down in the show notes for this. Like, there will be a blank version of the set that I put together if someone wants to copy this and build their own. But yeah, we're going to kind of jump in and talk about it a bit today.
So Dan, if you're building your own mystery booster draft, I assume this is not just getting versions of cards from the event that they play at Magic Cons. This is something a bit more elaborate, I believe.
Yeah, a little bit more. Yeah, more elaborate and also cheaper because, so Mystery Booster, for those who don't know, was a set that came out, I think, in like 2019. And it was originally something that was going to be sold or that you could do at conventions, basically to replace Chaos Drafts. The idea of it was a sealed product that you could buy, you could draft, and it would replicate the feel of a Chaos Draft. A Chaos Draft is, for those who don't know, is basically you just draft with a bunch of old packs and you don't really know what you're going to open. And that specifically is probably like my favorite form of Magic. It's kind of, it's like limited at its most pure. You're kind of like, yes, you might have seen most of the cards before, but you will never have seen them together in this thing. So like you can't really go into it with the blue-black deck in this format is the best because the format is random. You don't know what you're going to be opening. It's kind of like you're very much, you are using all of your drafting skills to the fullest to kind of find your lane, see what's open, try and get some synergies because you're playing with cards that were never meant to be played together. So and finding those cool synergies is kind of like the most Timmy thing that you can really do.
Yeah, for sure. And the games tend to play out. It's like very nuts and bolts limited, right? Like not limited of like the last 2 years, limited of like a core set in 2018 sort of vibes with like all the 2-for-1s really, really matter. You got to get every last little bit of value you can out of all of your cards.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I remember the last like we did a Chaos Draft as friends right about like 2-3 months ago, and just like when you are playing with older packs, there is definitely an element of like a lot of creatures used to be very bad. Like it's been a long time since I've been excited to open 3-mana vanilla 3/3 James and
premium in that particular Chaos Draft environment.
It's these kind of like feelings and combinations that you kind of, it's kind of, there is definitely an element of like nostalgia with this because like part of the point of me doing this project was playing with a load of cool cards that I wanted to play with again. And yeah, kind of like that's something that you get from Chaos Trust because you see old packs. Like if you've been playing a while, you will see cards that kind of you played with when you were younger. There's definitely an element of nostalgia that I also wanted to kind of try and capture with this project as well.
I think one of the differences I very much noticed between the mystery booster draft environment that you built versus doing a Chaos Draft is full of awful cards that you should never put in your deck because that's how all the Magic sets were designed. And your Mystery Booster environment, I think, has very few bad cards.
So that's very much by design, and also akin to the Mystery Booster product that they released. Basically, both Mystery Booster and the one I put together, it's effectively it's a collated chaos draft. It's unlike an actual chaos draft where you are running where you are finding 4-mana 2/1s with drawbacks, this kind of stuff. Like every card in it is designed to be playable and good, but you still have the variety of a really large set. Like from a power level wise, it's kind of somewhere between. I would say actually kind of like a pauper or peasant cube is probably a decent way to describe it, and I mean kind of like a modern pauper and peasant cube, but this still has rares in it. It has rares, but a lot of the rares are kind of older and cooler, and I like them, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that element of it feels like you can put a lot of your own personality, or certainly I get that from your Mystery Booster environment. If a different person we knew built a Mystery Booster environment, it would be very different. And I think that's a feature, not a bug, right?
Yeah, definitely, 100%. Yeah. You can really, you are very much kind of you're picking around 2,000 cards, and you can really tailor it to one. You're going to tailor it to some of the cards that you own, because 2,000 cards, we'll get to kind of cost at the end, but this wasn't super expensive to actually put together because so when I say it's 2,000 cards, about 1,700 of those are commons and uncommons from various draft sets. I think when I ended up buying probably about 600 cards, and they were all about between 5 and 10p each, that kind of stuff. And a lot of that would have been cheaper if I hadn't have thrown away a load of my draft chaff when I moved house a couple of years ago. So this is definitely something that kind of if you're sitting there at home with I'm not even gonna say a long box, like a stack, a pile of draft cards from the last however long you've been playing, you can definitely put something like this together, if not for free, very, very cheaply. I'll kind of go into the bits where I spent money a bit later on, but this is definitely a cool project for people to do if they like drafting, they want to draft a lot, and it's a good use for those old cards that kind of you just have lying around, and kind of a game store isn't going to take a stack of draft commons from the last 10, 20 years and such. But this is a good use for them, and I generally think people out there will really enjoy this.
Yeah, for sure. It must also be really nice that every time you do a pre-release or something, you're just like, oh, look, I got a bunch of new cards from my Mystery Booster. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely a large amount of tinkering you can do to this, as much as your heart's desires. But we'll kind of go through how we put it together and kind of how you can tinker it as well.
Yeah, so moving on to the sort of the practicalities of this. When I've drafted this, you arrived with nicely curated packs of Magic cards, and we drafted them, and that was very easy and straightforward for all the rest of us. I'm guessing there's quite a lot more going on behind the scenes, though.
But basically, what I have at home is I have a double long box of 2,000 cards with sections split into the different colors, the 5 different colors: colorless, lands, multicolored, rares, and then I've added little bonus cards that I'll kind of get onto. And then basically, I can use those to make packs. So the starting point was the booster pack, and that's kind of with Mystery Booster. The packs were seeded. And that's basically what I've replicated with this. So with the Mystery Booster packs that I was kind of taking inspiration from, slots 1 to 10 were 2 cards of each color. So 1 to 2 was a white card. 3 to 4 was a blue card, that kind of thing. Then you had a multicolored card. You had a artifact or a land. You had a rare or mythic with the M15 card frame, and one with the pre-M15, like an old border frame. And then you also had a bonus card at the end. So in original Mystery Booster, it was playtest cards. In a second print run, it was the foil sheet. I basically used that as a starting point, and then worked my ratios backwards. I did change it slightly. I made it so that I had a dedicated land slot, a dedicated artifact slot, and a dedicated multicolored slot, just because having different borders and frames didn't really work for me for the bulk of it. So that's the pack. That's what I'm working back from. The second part of this that was important was something called the set skeleton. This is something that kind of the designers, kind of like Mark Rosewater and Gavin Verhey, was kind of like alluded to and mentioned in detail for a number of years now. But basically, there was an article released at the start of this year where Marrow just gave out the set skeleton. Just gave it out. And basically, the set skeleton is basically what designers use to start designing a set. It basically tells you how many white 1-drops and what they should roughly do there should be in a set. How many blue uncommon counterspells, this kind of stuff. It's basically like every card you can think of that appears in a Magic set, they have broken it down and ratioed it out correctly so that designers can just add their cards to it to build a set, basically. And kind of like it's weighted so that blue has more instants and sorceries, green has more like 5+ drop creatures. Everything's kind of like it's kind of put together like you would, surprisingly, like when you would build a cube. The things are weighted into their sections pretty well. And basically with that set skeleton, like that's how they built Mystery Booster in the first place. They basically took that set skeleton and multiplied it by 8. And that's basically what I did with this. I took the set skeleton, put it into Google Sheets. There will be a link to a copy of this if you want to download it yourselves and make your own in the show notes. And they multiplied that set skeleton by 8. And then they filled in the cards for Mystery Booster. And basically, that was the process of kind of working out the base of it. And then when I had that, I had a set skeleton for a Mystery Booster set. I had my 1,600 or so cards for my commons and uncommons. And the thing with the set skeleton as well is that the ratio, so it is commons and uncommons, and the ratios of those are correct. So you have like 2/3 common, 1/3 uncommon, which basically means when you shuffle it together and deal out and make your packs, in a pack you might end up with 4 uncommons over your colors, but over the whole draft, it will average out to be the correct amount of commons and uncommons in a draft, and that's kind of what you're aiming for. So by doing it this way, it gives you the variance, but it gives you the structure, because you know in your draft set you're going to have the right amount of black removal, you're going to have the right amount of aggressive red creatures, the right amount of big, or like the right amount of like enchantment removal and white. You like all of your bits, all of your pieces are taken care of you by the set skeleton. And with Mystery Booster again, which is multiplying it by 8. So that's the back end mucking around with Excel spreadsheet thing I had to do for like a week to get the set together. And then kind of once you have that, you have the bare bones, you can then start filling in cards.
Okay, so we've got our set skeleton. We've got a helpful Excel-based resource provided by excellent content creators on the internet. Now we need some cards to go in it. It sounds pretty overwhelming trying to find 2,000 cards to fill up your Mystery Booster. Where do you start with that?
Yeah, so I'm going to caveat all this by saying that I did this. I was off for 2 weeks because I was having surgery and I was basically recovering from surgery. So I personally think I could have done this in like a day or two, in a couple of like weekend evenings, that kind of thing. But like this took me about like a week to kind of come up with the list, because I was struggling to use a laptop because I was recovering from surgery, which was not super fun. But like the actual finding the cards, it was actually the most enjoyable part. It was the best and most arduous part of the task, because like how I started doing this is kind of how I actually end up doing like a lot of stuff with cubes or kind of like projects that I'm doing. It's kind of I ask the people that I'm planning on playing it with. So this kind of does 2 things. Firstly, it gives you a bunch of good ideas that you wouldn't have thought of, because generally, if you're playing Magic with people, like if you have friends you play Magic with, they all have their own different experiences. They all have their own different pet cards, and you get good ideas from that. But also, it kind of gets people more excited about the project, because it's like, oh, I was they feel slightly more involved with it, and kind of like it does double duty like that, and kind of it. And just getting people involved, I thought was really helpful and gave me a bunch of ideas. But yeah, because the first thing I did was just like messaged the Discord we have, just like, hey yo, I'm making my own Mystery Booster set. I need 1,600 cards. What are your favorite draft commons and uncommons?
Yeah, I think this is one of those things where it sounds like you're asking your friends to help you out with a project. You're actually just giving them a great opportunity to talk about old Magic cards that we like for 4 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if they're in a pub, that helps, I think. Yeah, no, doing some outsourcing in this part certainly sounds strong.
Or like definitely at the start, because because yeah, there is part of me I could have just sat down and gone through Scryfall and filled it in, but yeah, play groups, yeah, have these experiences they have because they like the first card I was asked to put in was Burning Vengeance, and it's like, yes, that is a banger of a Magic card. Like, will there be support for it? Maybe, but there's 1,600 cards, you have enough slots, and also specifically in like in the set skeleton, there are slots that are for just like there are flex slots built into it. Like sets have build around commons and uncommons there. Like Burning Vengeance was probably that in original Innistrad or whatever set it was from back then. Like it was probably one of those cards. So you can definitely have these like seeded cards as well. But yeah, kind of like just reading through some of these, there's so many bangers on here. Like Flametongue Carvu, Phyrexian Rager, Werebear, Wrecking Ball, Skull Swaffer, Spider Spawning, Mayhem Devil, Recruit with a Worthy, Slice of Skill, Young Pyromancer, Abzan Falconer. That one takes me back. I love a bit of Abzan Falconer. Kiln Fiend, Triplicate Spirits. Like it has so many bangers. And like, yeah, that was really one of the fun parts. Just getting like pages and pages of just cool cards. And because you have so many slots, you can basically, if someone someone gives me Flametongue Carvu, 4-drop creature uncommon. You go to the slot, you go to the sheet, you go down to red, you find your 4-drop uncommon creatures, and you add in Flametongue Carvu, and then it's there, and that's one's done. That is one entry. You are trying to do this you are trying to fill in the whole thing, which does take time. But yeah, that was definitely getting people involved was the first place I started.
Nice. So I'm interested with the inclusion of Burning Vengeance, for example. I'm guessing you have to be. So that's obviously like a build around card, but it's a build around card that there's a wide variety of ways to trigger it throughout the history of Magic, right? You just have to cast a card from your graveyard. You could flash it back. You could Yargwill. You could. I don't know if Yargwill's in. Probably not. Probably shouldn't be. But whatever it might be, there's a lot of ways in Magic to cast spells from your graveyard, right? I'm guessing you need to be a little bit careful that your build arounds have a broad enough theme, right? You wouldn't, I assume, want to include like an Energy Matters card because you're just not going to have enough energy cards.
No, I think that's fair. So that is something that kind of you actually, it was a conversation. So when old packs were more readily available, not chaos drafting with packs with parasitic mechanics was something people spoke about. So or it was kind of like a tip when you could just go into a game store and buy a bunch of old packs. Now you can do that, but it's quite expensive. So like previously, you'd be like, don't do don't have Kaladesh in there because there's no support for energy in other packs. Don't do is it original Mirrodin that had Infect? Again, this was before Toxic and before stuff like that came back. But kind of like those were kind of the classic sets. So kind of like, don't put those in your Mystery Booster because they won't synergize with anything else. Kind of like those are something you kind of had to consider, and to an extent that is something to consider. Yeah, you are correct, and kind of that is something to consider with this. But like Burning Vengeance might not be the best example of this, but because like Burning Vengeance was just a card where it's kind of like there's so many cards in here, like you cannot support like a single deck in this. You cannot support a specific deck in this 2,000 card format, but you can support kind of rough archetypes. So like you can so in mine, like I try like this is something that kind of like most sets will generally do anyway. Kind of like it will be slightly spells based. Golgari will be slightly graveyard based. That kind of thing. Like Azorius might have some flyers, as it tends to do. That's kind of because like that's something that set designers do from the outset as a plan. It's something that kind of like I kept in mind with this, kind of like, especially when I got to gold cards, I did trying to keep them roughly in those kind of similar veins so the decks had some kind of cohesion while also being randomized. But with just going back to the builder rounds, it's kind of like in a chaos draft, there are cards that don't get played, and that don't get played because they are bad or don't work. And like in limited drafts, like in set drafts, that used to be more of a thing. Kind of like it's definitely gone away a bit with play boosters. There's less room for just bad cards because there's way more common. There's way more powerful uncommons now than there's less commons. So there's literally less bad cards in the set. But in old Magic, if Burning Vengeance is in a pack and you see it and you take a pack one, pick one, you might not get there with it, but you might have it in mind. But the thing is that because there's so many cards, you might get there with it, and that's kind of the payoff. Is like it's something you can take, and it's something you can have an eye about building around, and it might not get there, but if it does, and then it's really cool when it's something that you have done that no one else will probably ever do because of the variance of the whole thing.
Yeah. Most of them seemed like, some of them seemed like tough, but like you had outs, you know. Like I think actually maybe an even better was like Drakehaven. I think I saw in one of the packs, which is the whenever you cycle or discard a card, you can pay 1 and make a 2/2 flyer. And I think most of the like normal cycling payoffs, like Zenith Flare, for example, the deals damage equal number of cyclers in your graveyard. I don't think that would ever realistically get there, right? You're just not going to have enough cyclers. But because Drakehaven also works off just discarding, there's a lot of ways to discard. You can work that out. It seemed like, all the cards were like, you wouldn't get there every time, but sometimes you would.
Definitely. And kind of like after I got like mates and friends to kind of give me some cards to go in, the second part was going through cards I liked and kind of like going through like cards I owned was definitely a part of this because I didn't want to spend too much. This was a project I was trying to do with the cards I had, or a small investment. That's kind of one of the best things about it, is that it's not super expensive. So part of this was used by cards I had and cards I like, and kind of like the next part of that was going through sets I thought were cool and picking cards out from them. And that's kind of how you get a little bit of synergy, the kind of accidental synergy on top of the ones you're putting in. So kind of like that's where kind of like cards with like flashback that would work with Burning Vengeance, that kind of thing. Kind of that's kind of where they kind of came in, because I like went back to like is it from Odyssey? What's flashback originally from? Is it from Torment or something like that? I think I'm going to say Torment. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments or something like that. But like I like those sets. I like graveyard stuff. So kind of like you could definitely I think you mentioned earlier you could kind of tell parts of it were made by me, and that's definitely started off with some of the choices that I liked, because like I started playing in like Onslaught block, and there's a fair bit of Onslaught block-esque things in here. Kind of like there's morphs, because morphs are cool and have appeared in multiple sets and just go really well in drafts. There's a little bit of tribal stuff or a little bit of typal matters in here. Kind of like it is not in any way like I have not forced this at all, but like it's stuff you do see, and like I have done in Mystery Booster and I've done in Chaos Drafts. Like I've drafted an elf deck in a Mystery Booster before.
Oh, I think the last time we drafted this, I had a pretty good mono red goblins deck. And I guess that's the sort of tribe you need to go for, right? Because you can put some goblins payoffs in, and without trying very hard, you'll have a decent number of goblins in your red slot, because Magic designers like goblins, and you don't have to put a ton of work into making your goblin payoff making your goblin payoff potentially be good. I'm guessing you don't want to be going all in on like Hominid tribal.
No, exactly. No, exactly. Yeah. So like the kind of the roughly seeded creature types are kind of like white, I think, is soldiers, blue is wizards, black is zombies, red is goblins, and green is elves. Like those are all pretty like you could definitely make like white like humans maybe or something like that, but that might be a bit too. But I thought that was a bit too generic. I kind of thought soldiers were cool, and also we were going back to Onslaught with that one a little bit, because I was making people play some bad soldier cards.
I think soldiers is one of those tribes where like there's not a ton of sets that have a bunch of soldier payoffs, but there are just like there's million soldiers in Magic. Like so many of the white cards, whatever race, it's a human soldier or it's a dwarf soldier or it's a whatever soldier, it seems like they could get there.
No, exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing, like, because you have so many cards, like, you can start I'm not going to say packages, but kind of like put in cards that kind of kind of do interesting things with each other. Type pool matters is definitely, or like kindred cards is a way of doing that. Like there was one I put in, or there was like 6 cards I put in that I never thought would come up. I put in like the 6 mares, the 6 horses from like one of the core sets or something like that. And then just in multicolored, I put in Shadowfax, which cares about horses. And then
Funny.
in the first draft we did, I had 3 horses and Shadowfax. Or I had horse tribal in the multiverse thing, and it's like phenomenal. I can't believe this came together and worked.
Amazing. Just go Naya horse tribal immediately.
Exactly,
Draft 1.
Yeah.
Love it.
That was fun. But yeah, kind of like, I guess kind of just rounding off kind of like some of the ways I put this together, kind of like towards the end when I was kind of like when I was kind of coming closer to the end of getting the list completed, one thing I did was take inspiration from like pauper and peasant cubes, because those are kind of like the power level I'm roughly aiming for, if that makes sense. Kind of like in this, like I didn't want just like mythics and rares to be like the best thing. I kind of like I think I said going into this, I want the best card in it to be Siege Rhino, and I don't. There are more powerful cards than Siege Rhino in here. I will be honest about that. But like that was kind of like what I was aiming for, and if I kind of went slightly above it, that was fine. If I went slightly below it, that was fine. But that kind of like Khan's pre-fire level of magic, kind of like, we'll get onto the rares in a minute, because like everything we're talking about so far is commons and uncommons. But like power level wise, I wanted it to feel more akin to like older nuts and bolts magic, and I think that's kind of definitely a plus point of doing it this way. A plus point. I thought it worked out quite well.
Yeah, for sure. But I think that is something you could go in a different. If someone else was building a different one, they could certainly go in a different direction. Like you could shoot higher or shoot lower with that power level. So we talked a lot about finding the good commons and uncommons. With the rares, so I noticed that. So obviously, if we're aiming for best card as Siege Rhino, we're steering away from like the A+ bombs and limited bombs in recent sets. How did you go about selecting the rares?
So for the rares, I basically took 5 rares for each color at each mana value. So there's like 5 white, 5. There's 5 white 1-drops, 5 white 2-drops, and that's the same with everything up to 6, and then 6+ is kind of. Oh, everything up to 5, and then 6 is 6 and above that. And basically, I kind of, if I'm honest, one was cards I owned or cards I thought were cool, and kind of like that part is definitely where kind of like you need to do a bit of judgment. Like there's very few what you would call standard or like bomb mythics in there, but and the ones that are like the more powerful ones are like generally like above 5 mana. Like there's some big angels in there, there's some big dragons, that kind of thing, because those are cool and you do need to end games and that kind of stuff. And you do want someone to open something like, oh, that is a cool and powerful card. But kind of like just by not having like by basically by having like your raw power be at a higher mana value, it definitely makes it easier.
Yeah, and even the expensive rares felt like they were the sort of rares that, yeah, if you play them and it survives, then it'll probably win you the game, but you can also just point a removal spell at it and it will go away, and that will be fine. It's not the, a Bonnie Parle from this set or like a Planeswalker or something so much.
Yeah, definitely. I actually, I've pulled it up here. I think this is the best example of like a low drop rare in this. Is like, do you know what Skin Shifter does, James?
Can't say I do.
It is 1 green for a 1/1 creature human shaman. It has green. It has a green ability of choose 1, activate only once each turn. Until end of turn, it becomes a 4/4 rhino with trample, or until end of turn, it becomes a 2/2 bird with flying, or it becomes a 0/8 plant. Like it's a cool card. Like vibes was important with this. It's a cool card. Like that in theory could be a 3 mana 4/4 with trample. Or you could make it a bird to get around things. Like cool cards is kind of where I was going with that. And kind of one of the other things that I did which I quite liked. I know I said I wanted to make this be about like old and nostalgic Magic, but like I did also pull quite a little bit from like unsets with this, and also Universes Beyond cards, because some of those I do really like. I really enjoyed the Lord of the Rings draft. I thought that the Warhammer 40k decks were awesome, and like stuff like the Warhammer and the Doctor Who ones, those and even I think that there's a couple of Fallout cards in there. Basically, with those ones, I generally kept it to commons and uncommons, because there's a lot of cool cards in there which will not see play in any format, but they are awesome. Like a card like Noise Marine. That was a card that when we did the set review, I was like, could this be a Storm Payoff? And you were like, no, Daniel. No, it cannot. But Noise Marine is really cool. It's a 5-mana 3/2 with Cascade. When it enters the battlefield, deals damage equal to the number of spells you cast this turn to any target. It is an uncommon. It's not going to see play in so many formats, but it's a really cool card, and there's so many actually like that in those Universes Beyond sets. And this is definitely a place where you can play them, and they're not going to be broken. Like they are uncommon power level. They're not 2024 broken rares. They are cool cards basically, and yeah, that was something I really enjoyed with it as well.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so right now we've got 13 commons and uncommons. The slot 14 is a rare or mythic rare. But because these aren't play boosters and we're not shortchanging you, you do get a 15th slot. What goes in the 15th slot?
So the 15th slot, I set to be a alt art slot. So this is in a load of bunch of packs recently, you've had like the Mystical Archives, which is just like a card that could be anything that's like roughly themed with the set. But so with this, this is the one slot where I'm not 100% sure what's in it. I have taken a collection of, like, I think it's mainly commons and uncommons. There are rares and mythics in there as well, but kind of like alt art cards from all of like the mystery boosters. From all the Mystical Archive slots they've done. So like Strixhaven sets other than Strixhaven, what do you call that? Like Brothers War with the artifact ones. Like anything cool with alt art. Like I think there's even some secret layer cards I have. Actually, yeah, the Smokestacks is a secret layer one in there. But yeah, but kind of like this. The point of slot 15 is that it's random. I don't know what it is, so that yeah, it could be anything, and it's kind of like it's a way of adding cool variance and variety without really having to try that hard. All I did was just get a load of commons and uncommons with different artwork and put it at the back and shuffle it together, and you have variance, you have variety. Like some of these cards are cards like Strategic Planning or like Opt or like a Rampant Growth, but I'm pretty sure there's an alt art Sneak Attack in there, if I'm honest with you, and that's cool. That's like again, most of the time it'll be because it's roughly more commons and uncommons than rares and mythics. It will play up most of the time fine, but every now and then someone's going to get to pack one, pick one, a Sneak Attack, and that's cool.
Yeah, sounds sick. I'm excited to do that. All right, so once we've filled in our spreadsheet, we've got a list, roughly, and hopefully we own most of the list. But I think you could certainly just do this entirely from cards you own if you have a decent-sized collection and haven't thrown away your draft, right? But I'm guessing when you built it, you were still ordering a decent number of cards there.
Yeah, so I think out of the 1,600, I think I bought about 600 cards or something like that. I think the order worked out to be about 80 quid, and most of that was shipping. There were some custom issues with the order coming from Greece. That's just because, like, in the UK, it's oddly weird. Like, no store sells cards for less than 25p anymore. Like, there definitely used to be, like, a lot of card stores that would sell you, like, a draft common from the last 5 years for 5 to 10p. But, like I get it. Things are going up. Someone actually has to go and pick the card. I get that. Like, everything's gone up. So yeah, so just from a cost point of view, I used Card Market. I fully maximized the card wizard thing on that website to try and find someone who had as many cards as possible and bought as many from them as in one go. Yeah, I think I owned about I think it's like 1,000 commons and uncommons that I owned, and then I bought the other 600 from one seller. There will not be an easy way for me to tell someone how to do this. Like everyone in every different country will have different shops and that kind of stuff. Yeah. The other way is also ask your playgroup. that could be part of the process when you're kind of putting it together in the first place. And if I hadn't have thrown away my collection, or if I hadn't thrown away a load of my draft commons, or just like my chaff box when we moved house, like this would have been a lot easier. Like I think the example I get to you, James, is like I never thought I'd have to buy a bacon to a pie. Like the 4-mana removal, the 4-mana common removal spell from Eldraine. It's like I never thought that I would need this again. But kind of if you have these cards, like if you have a shoebox or like I know people who've had like not like just containers full of old Magic cards. You could definitely put this together really, really cheaply.
Yeah, because you don't need to like come up with a list and then see which ones I own and then order the rest. Right? You can look through your shoebox, see what I own. And that is a lot of the list.
Exactly. Yeah. And also the thing with me is like this was like a project I was doing while I was off sick. You could easily like just like put this together slowly over like a month or two. Kind of just like if you've just been to like pre-releases over like the last couple of years, you probably have enough stuff to do this anyway. And then over time you can kind of pick up cards you think are cool and add them in. Because one thing, so I initially started this to fit in a 2,000 card long box. So it's 1,600 commons and uncommons, and then 400 like rares and mythics and alt-art cards. But kind of like you can definitely. So my one is 8 times. You could have more. You could, in theory, have less as well. But kind of like when I add cards to this in the future, I'm not going to add like 1 or 2 cards. I'm going to add another like 250. I'm going to add a whole other set of cards. And kind of like that's how I'm going to do it. Everyone else can do it differently. Like if you want to add like I'm trying to keep that correlation there. Once you have it together, you can do with it what you want, basically.
And I'm guessing when you're adding new cards, you're not like taking old cards out. It's just getting bigger.
So the way I'm going to do it is I'm not going to add anything until I add a whole set of cards. Like to the commons and uncommons, to the rares and to the alt art cards, I'm just jamming more into the box as I find them and think they are cool. Kind of like the balance doesn't really need to be like screw it. I think this card's cool. We can go in the box. But like for commons and uncommons, because I want to keep the correlation, I want to keep the correlation there so that when I shuffle them together to make a pack, that it is roughly correct, basically, or it's as correct as possible. If you start jamming in like 20 more white commons, that will change the variety, and it means that kind of you don't get as good a correlation and as good a gameplay, in my experience, or as good a draft when you're playing it with your friends.
Yeah, for sure. And then once we've put this together, so if you're building a cube, once you've put it together, it's pretty low effort from there, right? You just show up with a cube, shuffle it together, deal out some packs, draft. With this, it's a little bit different, right? Because each pack has this many commons, this many uncommons, this many one rare. And you always show up with just nicely pre-made packs. How much of an effort is that? How long are you spending before each draft making those packs and whatnot?
So I'll be honest, it's probably about as much time as it takes me to do my regular cube. When I prepare for a 540 cube draft, like my regular full cube, I am like pile shuffling that for like half an hour to make sure it's right. It's right because I kind of the sanctity of the cube. Like we take that quite seriously. There's like stakes. There's like a belt. There's a name on the box. There's stakes for that. This is the opposite. Like this mystery thing. Like this is like the best. Like the best way I've described it is like pub magic. It's kind of like it is the best to just kind of like chill out and play on like a weeknight or something like that. Just not like if you want to play some games that are cool and interesting, that's what's it for. So kind of like the way I prepare it is basically in my long box, I have each section, each kind of card slot is its own section. So I firstly take the white, I will give them a bit of a shuffle. I will then basically start making packs correlated. And to an extent, you would have to do something similar to this if you were doing a set cube anyway. So say you had your Lord of the Rings set cube or you had your Khan set cube, that kind of thing. Like you still have to correlate packs this way anyway. Kind of like with this, you do have to do. So I would take 2 from the white pile, put it down, make a pack. Take 2 from the blue, 2 from the black, 2 from the red, 2 from the green, 1 artifact, 1 land, 1 multicolored spell, 1 rare, 1 mythic. You would do that for your whole 36 packs, or for your whole 24 packs for 8 drafters, and then you have a pack. Kind of like the way I do it is I will make 9 packs at a time. I will do 8 packs face down, and 1 pack face up. So I know I haven't buggered it up. Because I don't want to get I don't want to know what's in the packs, but I want them to be correct. So I'll do like 8 piles of the first 2 the white cards. Then on top of them I'll add the blue cards and that kind of thing. And kind of like, yeah, just by having my 8 packs I'm going to put into containers, and then 1 pack face up that I'm not going to put in a container just lets me know that, okay, this is roughly correct. This is good, basically. We're not going to show up and this pack has 15 green cards in it.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure.
Because, yeah, the things I actually show up with is the, not sponsored, but they're good, is the Dragon Shield Cube shells. I think the initial ones had a bit of issues, but these are the improved design. It says it on the box. They're just really good. Like, they're kind of like the equivalent of like cube images or something like that, but they're just cheaper and more easily available. They're basically just plastic booster packs. It's a small plastic box that seals itself and fits and holds some amount of cards. I think it will hold 15 double sleeve cards. One thing I haven't mentioned, which I probably is important, to keep the cost down on this is not sleeved. No part of this 2,000 card cube is sleeved because the average cost of the card is like 5 to 10p. Sleeving this would have been hundreds of pounds, which I am not spending on this, and you should not either. Like the whole point, the whole point of this is cheap, enjoyable, replayable Magic, and there is something about, I don't know, like if people want to play with sleeves, like I do ask people to play with sleeves, like, but bringing sleeves to a draft night isn't the end of the world. But kind of like, yeah, just drafting them properly in cardboard, as Richard Garfield intended, is quite nice.
Yeah, for sure. So when you normally open a booster pack of Magic cards from a regular set, they tend to give you conveniently the tokens included in that set. If you're drafting 2,000 cards from across the history of Magic, I'm guessing that's quite a wide variety of tokens. How do you deal with that?
We don't faff around with tokens here. So in my actual cube, it's kind of pedantic, but I make sure I have in my full cube, I make sure I have every token. When I add a card in, I will make an effort to get the token for it, or at least create the token for it. I'll do a little doodle, but put it in a sleeve and it's there. Again, for this, we're already making packs. We're already putting together 2,000 cards. For tokens, I just make sure to bring a pack of like the infinite tokens, or whatever they're called, like, or other brands, whatever. Like basically the whiteboard tokens and a marker. There is one that basically lives next to the box, and I just bring that with me, and people can draw and make their own tokens, and that's been perfectly fine. Like, if I was starting my cube from scratch, I would probably do that for my cube, just because it does work and is cheap and it's relatively affordable. Oh no, and it just works and it's cheap, and you don't have to like buying tokens can be quite expensive.
And just annoying, right? Like, it's just another thing you have to track down. Yeah, no, I'm really on board with the little whiteboardy type tokens. I actually use them in my main cube as well because I'm more lazy than Dan. But I find them quite useless, like Commander as well. Like any casual sort of Magic, I think those end up just being a lot easier than trying to remember to find all the tokens you need.
No, definitely. I do think for my main cube, I do think I built it before it was more widely arrayed. Like it was, like I'm sure a version of those have been around because it's just a bit of whiteboard.
Yes, like, yeah, they're not a new invention.
Yeah, but like, I'm pretty sure it was not something that was in the Magic player's zeitgeist as regularly as it is now, basically. So
cool. Yeah, so I think we covered the sort of practical elements of putting all this together and firing a draft. How have you found the drafts and the gameplay?
So I've really liked it. Like, it's probably been some of my favorite, just like ways I've played Magic in a fair bit of time. Like, yeah. So like, as I've mentioned at the start, kind of like Chaos Draft is my favorite form of Magic, and I don't get to do it anywhere near as often because just there was a time when yes, you could buy packs and they were cheap and you could do it. Then there was a time where yes, you could do it at like GPs. Now I don't even think they do mystery booster drafts at Magic Cons or anything like that anymore. And kind of like, so this kind of this part of the game has really not been available to me for a fair few years now. And so just having access to it has been phenomenal. Like it's I actually think it is the Magic I am best at of all of the Magic I am good at, I think I am best at draft formats when no one knows what they're doing. I think I have very good fundamentals, but little patience to learn a format. And this is perfect for that because the format changes every time. Like, you have so much variety, kind of like you will never draft the same deck twice. And that is really cool. And like gameplay wise as well. So because the packs are correlated, or sorry, because the set is correlated, because you have the right amount of bits at every function. But yeah, just the variety. You're never going to have the same deck twice. You're never going to have the same play experience twice. That part is really exciting to me and has been really fun. And kind of like, just having that variety and just the decks that people have built have just been really good bread and butter draft decks. Like if you like turning creatures sideways or doing like cool and interesting things with kind of like evenly powered level, kind of like there's. I'm trying to just not sound like a boomer here. Like,
it's fine. Lean into it.
It plays like how you think you remember Magic playing when you were younger. It plays better because, by God, we have done chaos drafts and the decks are awful. The decks are good, but it plays like how you think Magic used to play. I think that's probably the best way of describing it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I've loved the drafts actually. I found that because Limited's like always been my favorite way to play Magic, right? It's the thing that like I really made me get into Magic. I mean, Cube is amazing too. Those two are close, but I always love Limited. But Limited now, and it isn't a bad thing. I still play a lot of Limited. I really like it. But Limited now, the format it's not solved, but it's so much is known about every format so quickly, especially with the invention of 17 lands, the data tracker on Arena. This format is like 2 days in, and everyone's already like, "Oh, Selesnya is amazing," and it's that would have taken not that long ago. Even that took a couple of weeks. And this is like a really nice, refreshing antidote to that because no one knows what's going on. That's great. And you're drafting a new thing every time. The gameplay feels like a lot more... It feels like your decisions really matter. It's that real sort of, like nuts and bolts Limited gameplay, which I think can be lost in the more recent sets just because the rares are so powerful, the aggression is so high. Like Modern Limited is just very, very quick, right? Like you compare a 1-drop in Limited now to anything printed 5 years ago at Common, it's night and day. They all have like 15 abilities. It's bizarre.
I think the last vanilla creature was like 3 or 4 years ago. It might have been Strixhaven or something like that. Was the last vanilla creature.
Yeah, I believe it. But whereas this feels like you're going to play some... Like, the games aren't ridiculously long, but you're going to play a game decent length. You're going to have a lot of decisions to make. And if you make the right decisions, you're really going to get rewarded for that. Like, this is a format where sometimes, like, a decent amount of time be correct not to kill their creature when you can kill it because you want to save your removal spell for something more impactful later. And, like, judging, do I have time to do that? Can I afford to be that slow? And... Whereas it feels like in a lot of more recent sets, like, well, all the creatures are really powerful and will probably kill me, so I kind of just need to kill them when I can, There are some exceptions to that, but I think that's a prevailing theme of recent Limited formats. So, yeah, I've really liked it. And the decks, the decks feel a lot more... Like, it is definitely Chaos Draft vibes, but the decks feel more coherent than Chaos Draft decks by a lot. Like, like had a mono red goblins deck that was like very much doing a thing. Like it wasn't like a million goblin payoffs, but it was like 2 goblin payoffs and some cheap goblins. Or like played against a like really nice coherent blue white flyers deck, which is kind of the exact sort of archetype that does work well, right? Because it's every Limited format basically has a blue white flyers deck. So when you put together lots of good commons and uncommons, you'll be able to build a blue-white flyers deck. But I think there's a similar space thing available maybe with like red-black sacrifice. I think could certainly make work. There's just enough support for that over a great variety of sets. Yeah. I've really enjoyed the gameplay, and I've liked the drafts a lot. Yeah.
They're not just like curve out aggro decks swinging at each other. They're kind of like people can build cool and interesting things, and kind of like also because you are using the set skeleton that is there for you, it means that kind of you naturally have built into it, like you have control decks, you have aggro decks, but you have like mid range, kind of like if you wanted to see some combos in there, you can kind of like Mystery Booster, the product had Kiki-Jiki combos in there, like it had Kiki-Jiki and a bunch of like not like Deceiver X, like kind of the flash ones, but kind of like just cut creatures that when they came in untapped creatures, and that does go infinite with stuff like Kiki-Jiki, like kind of like you can seed combos in there because like these things do come up in chaos drafts, and kind of like that is something that is quite cool. And kind of one of the things that I'm looking at next is more like I think more is more build arounds and oddly more multiples of cards. Because we did a chaos, like the last chaos draft we did, there was like 3 of one random ogre open because it's just been printed so many times. Like we had like a Battle Bomb pact, a Conspiracy pact, and like a Theros pack, and there was this one 4-mana 3/3 ogre that was opened that we saw 3 of, and there were conspiracies in that set which care about having multiples of the same card. And like I'm not saying I'm just going to jam 8 Squadron Hawks into it and go to town, but like I think like I like 3 Colossal Dreadmaws is kind of thematic, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah, but it is, I think, very important that you get the versions from different sets.
Oh,
I think every one from each time Colossal Dreadmaw has been printed.
Yeah, yeah. I think my version accidentally has 2 Sarah Angels in it because I must have put 2 in at some point. I think I might put in one at one at uncommon and one at rare. So in theory, there are 2 Sarah Angels in it, and kind of that's something that does happen with chaos drafts, and that's kind of one of the things that you meant that I'm trying to replicate. So kind of maybe leaning into that a little bit and doing some stuff with conspiracies. I do like the sound of for the future, because also I love conspiracy draft as well, and kind of just having like a little sprinkling, like kind of like not like in any way making it a conspiracy cube, anything like that, but having a little sprinkling so it can come up, I do think is quite cool.
Yeah, that sounds sweet.
Right, so as we're just starting to wrap up this section of the podcast, I will make sure that there is a link to both my version, the thing actually no, I'm not going to put my version in because I don't want my playgroup to know what it is. I want it to be a surprise. I will make sure that there is a link to the blank spreadsheet that you can copy and make your own version of this down in the show notes below. There will also be a copy of the blank set skeleton if you just want to build a regular set with this. That's also doable. I will also put a link down to the Mark Rosewater article where he goes over this skeleton. If you like Magic design, it's a good read. Like I would recommend it. It kind of really lets you kind of learn how the nuts and bolts of a set work. I'll put that down in below, as well as any other resources that I've used to make this. They'll all be down below, so you can have access to them. Right, yeah, I think that's gonna do it for our main topic. We have our last section to touch on today, which is what have we been playing. So we've already kind of spoken about some things with the Mystery Booster at home, but we've been playing some other Magic, James. New Cube season is up and running on MitGo. How have you been finding that? How have you been doing?
Yeah, it's been fun. I've not been winning many trophies yet, but that's okay. I've been
give it time, James. Give it time.
Yeah. I've been drafting some nonsense artifact decks. That's been a lot of fun. There's some cool new inclusions from recent sets. One that's really overperformed, actually, that I was surprised by is, I don't know if we even talked about it, Proft's Eidetic Memory. Maybe we did. It's like a 2-mana enchantment that cantrips. Then, beginning of combat on your turn, you put a counter on something for each extra card you've drawn this turn. Turns out it's just really easy to draw lots of extra cards in Cube. Who knew? Yeah, like you just wheel and get 7 power, or you even just like that with Sylvan Library is like 3 counters a turn, you know?
Pretty good. Okay, yeah. I think there's a chance we might have spoken about it. It was 2 sets ago, James, so there's no way of me remembering.
Yeah, no, same as it is a mystery. We'll never know. But yeah, no, the changes have been cool. No, like I'd say really like radical new archetypes or anything, but like some cool cards added, which have been fun to play with.
And then we actually did Cube in person a couple of weeks ago, or a week and a half ago, and you took that one down, James. Congrats, you're back on the box again, and you are the reigning, defending, undisputed champion. That's 8 for you now, still the highest. Well done. How was your deck, and what did you draft?
Thank you. Yeah, it was good. So I drafted, I would say, aggressively fair Sultai with lots of spot removal, some good value creatures, just getting the most out of a Baleful Strix. And no, it was good. I'd say, so I think Dan's Cube is powered down a little bit, like removing the initiative creatures for Faelingus. A lot of that stuff, the really powerful proactive stuff that just felt like it ended the game really quickly. And I say I made quite a conscious adjustment to that. Like, I can play reactive magic again. I'm going to take some removal spells and some fixing and draft a bunch of good cards. And that went pretty well. I think I had like 4 fetch lands after 5 picks or something. That part was great. And then I just drafted good cards across a variety of colors. I say I was Sultai. I was actually splashing a couple of red cards as well, especially a Morlock. That card's very good.
Morlock, sweet. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, you were on my left, and so my cube does have double fetches, and there were packs with like 2 or 3 fetch lands in them. It's like, I'll wheel 1. This is fine. Mana base is easy, and then it comes around and it's like, I see, I've made a mistake. But yeah, my deck in that was fun. I think I went 2-1 in the end. I was kind of a cheaty, let's say reanimator, but for spells. Was kind of like trying to cheat and cast big spells. So standouts in my deck were like things like Torrential Gearhulk and like Magma Opus and Blood for the Blood God, which is a very big instant. I also had some infinite turn stuff with Arcane Savant, which is a new one I brought in, which might actually be a bit too powerful for mine. It's a conspiracy card that basically lets you. It gives the creature has an ETB of a card you've drafted. So the thing with that is I put an extra turn spell under it, and then if you have a way of flickering a creature every turn, you take infinite turns, or you just cast a spell a bunch of times. So that was pretty strong. I did that. I only won with that once, but the best play of the day. First time I played with Palantir of Orthanc. Very good magic card.
That's a banger.
Yeah. So I 20'd my opponent over 2 turns with that. The first turn, I flipped like 10 powers worth of stuff off it because I get my deck was very cheap stuff, but trying to cheat very expensive stuff. And he hadn't seen the very expensive stuff yet. He's seen like days and swords and that kind of stuff. So I played Palantir, and then I flipped like a Planeswalker and a 6-drop. I 4-drop and a 6-drop. And he's like, oh, that's quite a lot. What's the chance of it happening again? And then immediately flips Blood for the Blood God, which is 11 mana.
Yeah, that'll do it.
And I was very much losing that game, but that was kind of wild.
No, your deck looks really cool, actually.
Yeah, no, it was fun. Yeah. Arcane Savant might be like, I don't think it's ever been in the Vintage Cube just because of like it's a conspiracy card, but it is a cool one. Yeah,
it seems powerful. Quite powerful. I don't know if it's like definitely too powerful. I think definitely like give it some time to hang out and see how it plays. It's a really cool card. I'd never read it before it came into your cube, honestly.
Yeah, it was kind of part of a conscious decision with mine. I don't think anything other than an aggro or a mid-range beatdown deck had won my cube in quite a while. I think in like 8 or something like that. So it was definitely a conscious decision of kind of like power down aggro, power down just kind of like the pack 1 pick 1 Minsk and Boo deck. Power that down a bit so that maybe like a mid-range deck or a control deck or a combo deck could pull ahead. And kind of like it's cube that there's always tinkering to do. But yeah, I think it's in a decent place.
Yeah, no, I think it looks really good. Like the because like your deck, for example, I think it looks really good. But like I'd have been drafting that in the previous iteration with all the super powerful aggro stuff. I'd have been like, this is cool, but I'm gonna die before I do any of it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And then last weekend we filmed some Commander content. we did a game of Commander with guest of the show, or with friend of the show, Josh, better known as Fire Truck Modo online and on YouTube, and also with the wife, who you can find at the Legacy Gambit. It's a content household over here. This is our second attempt at doing Commander gameplay. It was really fun. It was really good to do. We won't go too much into details because we kind of want you to watch it, but we will put down links to the video in the description below. Check it out. Yeah, we really liked doing it, and hopefully there should be some more coming to the YouTube channel soon.
Yeah, no, it was a ton of fun to play. Definitely encourage people to take a look at that on 2-Sweet-MTG.
But yeah, with that, I think that's going to do it for today. James, pleasure as always, man. Thank you very much.
Well, it was good.
Nice one. Just leaves me to thank you all very much out there for listening. If you made it this far, please consider giving the podcast a 5-star review, a thumbs up, tell a friend, all that good stuff. Until next time, it's goodbye from me, it's goodbye from James, and we'll see you all soon. Goodbye.